So let's start by setting up our project first. So I've created an empty Unity project uh, of 2D template, and we have the sample scene opened up. So first, we are going to change our build settings to Android. So it is going to set up all the settings related to Android, and we'll be able to add and remove the packages which are necessary for Android. So it will take a couple of seconds, and after that, uh, we'll create our gameplay scene and we'll add it to our build. So it should take around 30 to 40 seconds, and we should be done. So the platform is changed to Android. Now let's change our settings first. So inside our project settings, as TextMesh Pro is already installed, we are going to install TextMesh Pro. And mm, mhm, mhm. So it's compiling the scripts, and it's always better to have TextMesh Pro installed as it's the default UI and stuff. Everything is done using TextMesh Pro. The previous one is the legacy one, and so I'm installing TextMesh Pro, and after that, we'll disable the warnings if some characters are missing, and inside the editor, we'll have the naming to underscore. And let's go inside Package Manager, and we'll set up our packages. So we'll remove our JetBrains Rider editor. We'll also remove the TextMesh Pro framework. So we'll remove the TextMesh Pro framework, not TextMesh Pro. What was that? Yeah, UI version control. We don't need the version control, so we are going to remove it. And we don't need visual scripting and VS Code editor. So only the Visual Studio Editor package is going to remain. And after that, mm, we'll create our folders and scenes. So every reload should take around 15 to 20 seconds. So it should be done. Let's remove the VS Code editor. And let's remove Visual Scripting, and finally we'll update our Visual Studio Editor. So it takes a little bit of time. Now let's update our Visual Studio Editor, and after that is done, we'll close our package manager, also our project settings, and inside our build settings we need to create a new scene, and this scene is going to be saved inside our scenes folder, which is going to be our gameplay scene, and we'll add it to the build. We'll delete our sample scene, we don't need it, and we'll also close our build settings, and instead of uh, just use the portrait one, and we'll set up the game view, and after that let's add all the folders. So the first folder is going to be for our prefabs, and then we are going to have for our generator, and we are going to have for our scripts, and one more folder for our resources. And for resources, we are just going to use a simple circle, and let's bring in our editor folder, which includes the color palette. So we'll bring in the editor folder, and after that, let's create our generator. So we'll save it, and it's going to be inside our generator, and we'll save it as a generator, nothing too complicated here. And let's bring in the resources. So we just need to bring in our circle, and let's create our scripts. So the scripts, we are going to use our level script and our point script. Then we are going to have an edge script, and finally our game manager. manager script, and naming should be fine. And finally, inside our generator, we are going to have our level generator script. So that should wait for our setup, and we should have all of our scripts and resources ready. And in the next part, we'll start by creating all of our prefabs. So the prefabs are pretty simple. So we'll do it in the next part. So in the previous part, we set up our project. Now we'll create all of our prefabs, and we'll also create the scriptable object for a level. And let's see what prefab are we going to need. So first we are going to need our point prefab, and the point prefab is just going to be a simple circle. So let's add the sprite renderer, and we are going to add the circle. We'll set the color to be blue one, and instead of simple we'll have it sliced, and the size is going to be zero point 0.6 by zero point 0.6, and our main camera color is going to be our dark black, and it's going to be at a higher order in layer. We'll attach the circle collider 2D, which is going to be set to trigger, and finally we'll attach our point script, and we'll save this as a prefab. So this is going to be our point, which are the points for our graphs, and finally we'll create our edges. So our edge is just going to have a line renderer, and our edge script, and it is going to be at zero order in layer. And for our material, we are going to use the default line, sprite default, both are similar. Let's set the width to 0.2, and positions. So we have two positions. So first one is at 0 0.5, 0 0.5, and the second one is at let's put both of them at 0 0.5, and for the x coordinate we are going to increase the size by 2. Let's put the main camera at 1.5, 1.5, and we should be able to see it. Now we have two colors, so we'll use the default white color for now, but we are going to set this up and side our scripts. And cast shadows, it is off. Receive shadows, it's also going to be off. So generate lighting data, no need. Shadow bias, texture mode, let's use style. Alignment is going to be view, and that should be it for our edge. And we'll also save this edge as a prefab. And let's create our game manager, and we are going to add our game manager script. And after that we need to create our level. So we'll need to uh, create its scriptable object. So let's load, and it is going to show us all assets, and let's click on the level, and our level is going to be inherited from a scriptable object, and it's going to have create asset menu, file name is going to be level, and also our level menu name is going to be level, and we are going to have rows and public and row, and call public uh, public list of vector force, and we are going to call it points. So the first three position are going to be its vector 3 position, and the final fourth coordinate is going to be its id. Then we are going to have a public list of vector 2 integers, which are going to be our edges. So edges is going to denote first coordinate. Both of the coordinates are going to denote the ids which two points are connected, and that's going to be our level. Pretty simple. And next, mm, let's also add the script for our point. So our point is just going to have the spawning script, and let's use an hidden inspector, and it's going to be public int for the id, hidden inspector, public vector 3 for our false, and we are going to have an initialization function which is going to take two vector 3s, not two vector 3s, position and an id, and it is just going to set the id to be equal to id, position to be equal to position, and transform dot position is going to be equal to capital pos. So point script is also pretty simple. Now let's remove this knd, our level also remove it, knd, and let's go inside unity and let's create our level scriptable object. So it should be at the start level, and we are just going to have 3 4, let's use a 3 cross 3, and our points are going to be 4 points, and 1 2 3 and 4. Now let's suppose we have a 3 cross 3 grid, and our first is going to be at 0 0.5 0.50. Our next is going to be at 1 and 2 plus 2, so x is going to be at 2.5 0.5 and 1, and similarly 2.5 2.5 and 2, and finally x is going to be 0 0.5 and y is going to be 2.5 and 3. So these are going to be the points which has the xyz coordinate, which is the position. Now let's add our edges. So 0 is going to be connected to 1, 1 is going to be connected to 2, 2 is going to be connected to 3, 3 is going to be connected to 0, and our 0 is again going to be connected to 2. So these are going to be our edges, and now we should have all of our prefabs. So uh, we need to spawn them, and we are going to spawn it inside our game manager. So let's go to the next part. So in the previous part we created all of our prefabs. Now we need to spawn our prefabs depending on our level data. So let's do that. So we'll go inside Visual Studio, and we'll create our edge script. So edge is going to have two functions. The first function is going to be when it is going to be initialized, and the second function is when we are changing its color. So again, it's going to be pretty simple. So hide an inspector, public bool, and this is going to be checking for field, and we are going to have serialized field, private, line renderer, and we'll just call it line, serialized field, private, gradient, and we are going to have start color and serialized field, private gradient, which is going to be our active color. And after that, we are going to have a public void in it, and we are going to pass vector 3 for the start and vector 3 for the end, and line dot position count is going to be 2, line dot set position, and we'll add 0 to start, 1 at end, and our color gradient is going to be start color, and our field is going to be false. And when we are going to add, so our field will be equal to true, and our line dot color is going to be equal to active color. So pretty simple for the edge. Now we need to spawn our game. So let's go inside our game manager, and Let's start. So first we are going to need a reference to our level, and next we are going to need a reference to our edge prefab. Then we are going to have our point prefab. Then serialized field, private line renderer. We are going to have our highlight. And after that, private dictionary for storing our points, which is going to be from ID to its point, and we'll just call it points. Private dictionary, which is going to go from vector to integers to our edges, and we'll just call it edges. Private point for our start point and our ending point. Then we are going to have private integer for our current ID, private boolean for has game finish. And let's set it up inside our awake. So inside our awake, has game finished is going to be false. Then we are going to have points is going to be a new list. Then our edges is also going to be a new dictionary, and our highlight dot game object dot set active is going to be false, and our current ID is going to be equal to -1. And then we'll spawn our level. Private void spawn level. So inside our spawn level, let's change our camera position. So v3 cam pause dot x is going to be level dot call multiplied by 0.5. Cam pause dot y is going to be level dot row multiplied by 0.5. Then we'll reset its position. Camera dot main dot orthographic size is going to be math dot max of level dot row, level dot column, and then we'll add to it. So this is going to be our camera, and after that we'll spawn our points. So for int I is equals to 0 points dot count. Our vector 4 pose data is going to be equal to level dot points of I, and our vector 3 spawn position is going to be new vector 3 pose data dot x, pose data dot y and z, and after that we are going to get its ID, which is going to cast an integer pose data dot w, and after that we'll set points of ID is going to be instantiate, and we are going to instantiate our point prefab, and we'll initialize it. So dot init, and we need to pass our spawn position and the ID. So it is going to create the points, and after that we need to create our edges. So similarly for our edges, vector 2 and normal is going to be equal to level dot edges of I, and vector 2 and reverse is going to be new vector 2 and normal dot y and normal dot x. And after that we are going to spawn our edge, and it is going to instantiate our edge prefab, and will set edges of normal to be equal to our spawn edges of our reverse is also going to be equal to our spawn edge, and we are going to initialize. We need to pass the position, so we need to get the points of normal.x id dot push and normal.y dot pause. Mm, Instead of pause, let's just call it position. I was calling it position before, so let's rename it ITION, and it should be changed inside our game manager. So this is going to be for our spawning, and let's create also the game winning function. So again, it is going to be pretty simple. So we'll call it check win private void check win, and for each item in our edges, if item dot value dot filled, then we are going to return. So if any of them is not filled, then we are going to return. If it is not, then as game finished is going to be equal to true, and we are going to start the coroutine, which is going to be our game finished. And our game finished coroutine is just going to restart the game. So private enumerator game finished, and here return new, wait for seconds, we'll wait for 2 seconds, and after that we'll restart the game. Scene management dot scene manager dot load scene, and we'll just pass the index. There's only one scene, so it is going to be 0. And that should be it for our game manager spawning function, and we should be done with our scripts. So let's go inside Unity and let's hook everything up. So let's set up our prefabs first. So inside our points, we don't have anything. Inside our edges, we need the start color, which is going to be white, and our active color, both of them are gradients. So and we need to create an edge, and we need to set it up to our highlight, and we need to pass the edge, the point, and the level. And this edge is going to be a little bit higher, so order layer is going to be 1, and the default color is going to be yellow. Now let's hit save, and there are not any errors and everything is spawned correctly. So this is our current puzzle. So we need to fill it in one stroke, and we spawned all of our game pieces. Next we need to do is have them update the input, and after that it should be done, and we just need to create a level generator where we can edit all of those points. So let's go to the next part. So in the previous part, we spawned all of our board, and now we need to create the code to interact with all of the pieces. So let's go to Visual Studio and let's start doing that. So again, it is going to be pretty simple. We have already done it multiple times. So let's start by creating an update function. So it should be just after spawn. So let's call it update. And first we are going to check if our game is finished, and we are going to return. If it is not finished, then we are going to check for input dot get mouse button down of 0. Then we'll get the mouse position, and it should be camera dot main dot screen to world point, and we'll pass the input dot mouse position. We'll convert it to a 2D, and it's going to be new vector 2 mouse post dot x and mouse post dot y. We'll do a raycast r2d break acid 2D hit, and we'll do physics 2D break cast, and we are going to go from mouse pose 2D to 0. And if we don't hit anything, then we are going to return. But if we hit anything, then our start point is going to be hit dot collider dot game object dot get component point, and we are going to activate our highlight object, set active to true, and we'll set its points. So highlight dot position count is going to be equal to, and highlight dot set position and 0, we are going to set the start point dot position. Similarly, highlight dot set position 1 to start point dot position. And also will else if we are dragging and our start point is not equal to null, and input dot get mouse button down, we don't need the down, we just need the mouse button of 0. Then again we are going to do the same thing here, and if we are hit, then we'll set the endpoint to be equal to dot collider, and after that we'll set the highlights endpoint, so highlight dot set position, and we'll set the position for the one to be our mouse position. And after that, if our start position is equal to our end position, or our end position is equals to null, then we are going to return. Else we'll check if we want to add at the start. So is start add, then we'll add to the start. So how we are going to add, we'll set the current id to be endpoint.id, and after that edges of new vector to end, and our start point.id and our endpoint.id. So this is going to our edge, and we'll add that edge, and after we have added that edge, we'll set the start point to be equal to endpoint, and we need to set the highlight dot set position, and we are going to set the 0 to start point dot position, and we'll copy this line again, and we'll set the ending to start point dot position. Similarly, instead of adding at the start, if we are adding at the end, then again we are going to do similar, but current id and edges, we also need to check the winning condition. So after edge, let's check the win condition, and we just need to create both of the conditions for our starting and the ending add condition. So finally, if input dot get mouse button down of 0, uh, input dot get mouse button up of 0, then we'll set the start point to be equal to null, end point to be equal to null, and we'll turn off the highlight. So highlight dot game object dot set active to false. And we'll check the winning condition again, maybe if the game has finished. So the only thing that's remaining is checking when both of them are going to finish. So private bool and is add start or start add, and at the end we are going to return true. But when we are not going to return true. So if our current ID is not equal to -1, then we are going to return false. And after that, vector2 int edge is going to be equal to new vector2 int of start point dot id and the endpoint dot id. So this is going to be our edge, and this edge should be present and it should be empty. So if our current id is -1, not -1, then it should be present. So if edges dot contains key and we are going to pass the edge, then we are going to return true. If it does not contain, then we are going to return false, at else it is going to return true. Now let's create our private tool is and add, and at the end we are going to return true. And first we'll check if our current id is not equal to our start point dot id. So our starting position should be our current id. Then we are going to return false. Then we'll create our edge and it is going to endpoint and start point dot id, doesn't matter. And if edge dot try get value, edges dot try get value, and we'll pass our key and out where result out edge result. And if our result dot filled, then we are going to return false. Else if it is not filled, not filled, then it is going to return true. But if it does not get the value, so try get value is going to return false. So the edge does not exist, then we are going to return false. And if it is also filled, then it is also going to return true. Okay, so both of them are done, and I think I corrected everything without any errors. So coded everything without any errors. So I think the game should not crash, and let's see what happens. So we are able to draw uh, uh, the start condition worked perfectly fine, but our input dot get mouse button. So I think that should be get mouse button of 0, and start point is equals to endpoint or endpoint is equals to null. Yeah, so it is getting set up. I don't know, maybe what's the error, let's see. mm, okay, so it is not working. Why it is not working? We didn't set the endpoint. I think yeah, if we are hitting something, then we are going to set it. If both of them are not equal, or we need to enter the add to the end, not equal to start point dot id. Yeah, current id is going to be equal to endpoint dot id. hmm where is the problem happening? Start point dot position and endpoint dot position. Where is the error happening? Else return false, result is equals to null, or result dot fit. Hmm. 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 Result is equals to null. Result dot filled. Then we are going to return false, else we are going to return true. Okay, so here's the problem. At the end we need to return true, but else we are going to return false. So that was the issue, and the issue was just the if else condition here. So let's see now. Is it? Yeah. So now the problem is fixed, and the game should restart. And our gameplay is yeah, we added everything to the gameplay, and let's copy, and we need to go inside our scenes gameplay, change the color to dark, paste, and where's our edge? So I think yeah, now it should be fine, and let's play the game. So the game is finished, and the problem is solved. So the problem was for our else. Instead of else, I just created a normal bracket. This else was missing. So that was the issue. Now let's go inside Unity, and we have almost everything done. Let's play the game again, and let's see if it does create any more errors. So something happened. What did happen? Hmm. Okay, so the game is working perfectly fine, and we just need to add our level generator where we are going to spawn and edit all of our points. So let's go to the next part. So in the previous part, we finished our gameplay scene. Now we need to edit all of our prefabs. So edit all of our level. So we need to spawn them and create the edges, and let's go inside the generator. So inside the generator, let's remove the edge, and let's also delete the game manager. We are going to add our level generator. uh, let's add the level generator script, and everything's going to be similar to our game manager. So let's go inside Visual Studio, and we are going to copy our whole game manager script. Let's edit everything first. Point, edge, and level, we don't need it. So let's close them. We'll open our level generator, and we'll copy everything from our level generator and from our game manager, and we'll paste it inside our level generator. We don't need the check when and the game finished. We always need the game to be running. So we'll remove the check-in function, and also the has game finished. So let's also remove that, and we can directly remove the has game finished. And has game finished. Now there are not any errors. And before the level, let's create a serialized field for private integer for our row and the columns. So we are going to define the size of our level, and after defining our size, we are going to have 2 points for our start spawn point and our end spawn point. So let's create start spawn point and our end spawn point. So it is going to be for our edges, so when we need to create an edge, and also a private static integer for our spawn id. And we are not going to have any default values. And before spawning the level, we are going to create the level, and let's create our create level function. So it is just going to initialize it, but when it is going to initialize it, so if our level dot row is equals to row return, and our level dot column is equals to column, then we are going to return. Else we'll set the level dot row to be equal to row level dot column level dot points is going to be equal to new vector 4, and level dot edges is again going to be new vector 4, and finally our spawn id is going to start. And when we are spawning, we also need to update the spawn id. So our spawn id is going to be equal to id plus 1, and that should be for our spawning. And after that we need to spawn our points. So after our input, we are going to have input dot get key down of space. So when we are pressing space, we need to spawn our point. So let's get our point, and if we hit anything, then we are going to return. So we can't create a point there, but if we don't hit anything, then our id is going to be spawn id plus plus, and our position is going to be equal to new vector 3 of compose dot xy and 0, and our vector 4, our point is going to be new vector 4, and we'll pass compose dot x y 0, and the final value is going to be your id, and we need to initialize it. Let's first level dot points dot add our point, and our point of id. So our points of id is going to be spawn person id, and we need to save our levels. So editor utility dot set dirty, and we are going to save our level. That should be for our spawning the point, and after that, if input dot get key down of a, and a is going to be for hmm, if not hit, then we are going to return, and if we hit anything, then our start spawn point is going to be hit dot collider dot game object dot get component, and we are going to get the point. And similarly, we are going to have the d, where we are going to set up the ending, and instead of end, we are going to set the end spawn point. And finally, we are going to have input dot get key down of w. So if you press w, then we are going to create an edge. So if our start spawn point is equals to null, or our end spawn point is equals to null, then we are going to return. And if our start spawn point dot id is equals to end spawn point dot id, then also we are going to return. Both are same, and vector 2 end normal is going to be equal to new vector 2 end of start spawn point dot id and end spawn point dot id. And if we already have an edges, so edges dot contains key of normal, then also we are going to return. Then if it does not contain the key, then we'll create our edge. So we have already created it before, then let's add it. And edges of reverse, so we need to create our reverse. So vector 2 and reverse is going to be new vector 2 of normal dot y and normal dot x. And we also need to add it to our level, so level dot edges dot add normal, and we need to save it. So editor utility dot set dirty to level, and that should be it. And I don't think I created any errors, and our game should work perfectly fine if we set the size to be 3 cross 3, add our level, and we don't need the highlight, so let's remove our highlight as it is not getting used anywhere. And it showed 11 errors, so let's remove our highlight and also highlight here. So I'm removing the highlights. Just remove the highlight, and mm, highlight does not exist. And now it should be cleared. Now let's go inside Unity. So we just cleared the highlight, and we'll add our edge and also our point. Now if we hit play, we should be able to play the game as before. The game is not going to get finished, but we can also spawn the point. So pause here, then we are going to press A and the D and W, so it is going to create an edge there, and we can play the game again. Now it should be saved, so let's go inside our scenes and let's save it. And it should have similar gameplay here. So it is saved inside our scriptable object, and that's it for the game. So this is the game One Stroke, and in the next video we are going to have the final game, which is going to be the Paint. And again, it's going to be 2D grid type games, and that would be 9 games so far, and the last one's going to be the 10th game. So take a break and then follow along, and thank you for watching. See you in the next game.